We are live today at the HCM Excellence Conference 2017, and with me I have Mike Pino from GE. He's the Digital Learning Leader. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's great having you, and especially after talking with you for several years now, and now putting a face behind the voice.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's been, how many years have we? We've actually multiple years.
Multiple
we'll just
years,
leave that.
Yes. We've been digital friends.
Yes, we have. We have.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your background, your experience in the learning space, and where do you see the learning industry headed?
Wow, that's just a small little question. So I'll start first with me, which isn't really that interesting. I've done a lot between the intersection of technology and learning. That's basically my entire career is really the intersection of the two. I've done a spell being the head in digital marketing. I've done work inside university systems, leading web development and learning management systems. I've also done on the vendor side in learning, developing content and solutions, platforms. So for Harvard Business School Publishing, I built the Leadership Direct platform with 6 other people. In 2007, I've done a lot of other things with Harvard Business School Publishing. In all the cases, I've been very lucky and fortunate to have great teams and just be at the right place at the right time, and somehow, things have worked out. And I think that one of the things I've been watching happening and learning that's been very exciting to me is how the evolution of technology is really changing the opportunities that exist. And it's really accelerating a massive change that's happening across all of HR. In some ways you can call it a massive disruption. I think of it not as a disruption, but actually an amplification and an augmentation of what HR can do. And so in some ways I see a lot of opportunity for the role of HR in the future. And I think that how I look at myself is someone that possibly could help shepherd this transition and really help people understand how they can be part of the future and part of this change. To me, it's an exciting time to be in learning. It's an exciting time to be in HR. There's a massive amount of opportunity.
So what do you think, how do you think HR is going to look different, let's say, in 10 years?
10 years is probably harder than 5 years. In 10 years, I would imagine a lot of the confusion about what does leadership development do, what does organizational development do, how does talent development and organizational development play together in the same sandbox, where does workforce development play? I think a lot of these functions become a lot more integrated, and I think it becomes more integrated because work itself, as we move towards a digitally enabled age, in the knowledge age where you're competing in knowledge and you're competing in a very volatile and uncertain environment, the kind of technology that is evolving and the kind of capabilities that organizations need to stay at the top of their game, I think that HR becomes the place to really, how do you bring together the right group of people at the right time, provide them with the right information to get their job done, and help them accelerate their own learning so that they can actually capture what they picked up and bring it back to the larger organization. Right. So it becomes a continuous learning organization. And I think in some ways a lot of that separation that's really artificial and academic goes away, in my mind.
And the integration of the functions and how everything is integrating with each other, the learning and the performance and talent and people, a lot of that's being driven by technology at a rapid pace. And about 5 years ago, when we started looking at integration and systems and integrated suites, that almost seemed like it would never happen at the very beginning.
You're right. And some of the early conversations we had, we used to talk about these integrated systems as though they would do that kind of thing, or they'd be the end-all, be-all. But we also had that healthy dose of skepticism, I recall, in some of those conversations that we had. I don't, it's a great point. Where, I guess I would flip the question back to you. I think that the hard thing in the space to be a vendor or to be a supplier of systems in this space, it's a very difficult operation. It's hard to actually really understand how do you actually provide what really will separate out organizations to help them compete against each other. And in some ways, what we're talking about with integrated talent suites are really about actually helping an organization compete
for talent.
That exactly. Right. So it becomes a very interesting. How does the landscape look? And that's I don't know how that plays out. And
especially when you have all these new technologies that are coming out, and they have really cool features and really cool design. And yet, you may already have a legacy system in place, and you have a large organization that you have to deal with a lot of decisions. Yet, you want to be on the forefront of it as one of the more progressive organizations.
That's right.
It's interesting you turn that back to me. I mean, I think some of these new cool technologies, oftentimes they get piloted by one area of the organization. If you're so big and you can't make that larger enterprise decision as quick as you'd like, we're seeing a lot of functions where, in some ways, it's going back to silos to some extent, but it's all competing for who has the best and not just the best system, but the best way that they can engage their people, develop them, and really, help them do their jobs better.
I think even to add to that, or to hook onto what you're saying, it's not just making them compete better, but making the story compelling.
Right. Because
what you're trying to do is attract and retain talent that you can then use for productive gain. I mean, what you're really looking to do is gain some productivity for gains in organizational success ultimately. And it's a challenge. I don't know how this will all play out. It's a very interesting.
Yes. Well, hopefully we'll have another chat in 10 years. We'll see where we're at.
I would love that.
What else are you going to attend this week, or what have you? Any takeaways so far?
It's been a really, what's fun about you guys put on a fabulous conference, first of all.
Thank you.
And what I've really enjoyed about it is it's a nice mix of people. It's a really good level of conversations that are happening. A lot of us are coming from different industries or operating in different places. Some of us are, like GE, multinational, multi-100,000 folks. Some of us are smaller organizations with different kinds of challenges. I think what's really fun about the group of people that are here are that there's a rugged individualist sort of let's roll up our sleeves and talk about solutions, but let's talk about the problem first before we dive into solutions. And I find it to be a refreshing kind of conversation. I find too often, I'm getting sold something that when I listen to it, I'm like, okay, I've heard that stale story before. And what I find here kind of interesting is that there are a lot of wrinkles that people bring to the conversation that make you take a step back, and that's been really valuable to me. And so I wouldn't actually point to any particular session. I would talk about the whole thing and sort of say the conversations that are happening here are amazing.
And that's interesting you say that, because sometimes you can't get the level of results or the outcome that you desire unless you understand what are some of the challenges and what are some of the things that you can modify. And that's going to be a continuous focus for any company to continue to improve and to achieve.
Absolutely. And I think, in fact, actually, even to add on to that a little bit more, knowing which questions to ask.
Right.
Not even having the answer, but I think that what I've really come to respect is actually that what I'm getting out of this is how do I change the way I ask the question to get a different kind of response, because the wrinkles actually force you to rethink about what is the real context, what is the real problem that we're trying to solve for here.
You're always pushing the boundary.
Exactly, and I think that's the real value to me in this, in being part of these kinds of conversations.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Mike, so much for joining me on the HCMx radio podcast, and also for being here at the conference.
Thanks much.